Welcome ladies and gents, Chris Andre here. This is going to be one of two videos that I'm going to upload tonight. So plenty of content for you guys to get stuck into if you're interested. For this particular video though, I want to talk about George Kambosos and the narratives that have emerged around him. Whenever I see an unfair narrative emerge around a fighter or a trainer, I tend to do a video. I've done one about the defense of Tunde Ajayi, the defense of Anthony Joshua, the defense of Malik Scott. And I always seek to try to get people to look at things the other way from the narrative that is emerging and prevailing. And that's what I'm going to seek to do in this video. And the narrative that's emerged around him, that the only reason he was taking the Devin Haney fight is because Lou DiBella and his team knew that he could not compete at a high level, that he's nowhere near the top of the lightweight division, and they essentially wanted to cash out. They thought, we don't want him to lose to a lesser guy, so we need a big fight against a guy who's going to bring in the big bucks, so let's just put him in there against Devin Haney and cash out on him. We're going to talk about this narrative and why champions like that are being discarded, in a sense, thrown to the wolves, thrown to the scrap heap of history, whilst in the meantime you have guys who are not champions, who are being molded into superstars, who have not had the balls to do what George Kambosos has done, who have not shown the warrior code, as Eubank Senior puts it. I put out a tweet to say beating two former world champions and a top 10 pound for pound fighter all on the road, he was then entitled to an easy homecoming fight, and instead he went after Lomachenko or Haney. The sport puts guys on pedestals that are afraid to risk these days, and then there's you, George. That's a true champ. Respect. George Kambosos retweeted this and he wrote, "Thank you, #respect. He also went to the effort of screenshotting this and making it one of his Instagram stories, which means this genuinely resonated with him. Now, why did this resonate with a guy who's achieved so much, the former unified or undisputed, depending on where you stand on that debate, lightweight champion of the world? Well, I want you to look at this interview.
You know, he's slick, man. He's a good boxer. He's slick. You know, it is what it is. I try my best. I give my heart to this sport, and you know, I need to do rest. Three big fights, you know, within a year. So it is what it is. I try my heart out tonight, and Devin, you know, I wish you all the best in the future. This guy's going to be there for a long time, you know, and I hope you guys remember Ferocious Kambosos. You know, it's not the end.
Firstly, I put my heart into this sport. And secondly, please don't forget Ferocious Kambosos. This is a guy that's made history, and he's concerned with people forgetting him. It doesn't matter whether you believe he's a pound for pound elite level fighter. Not everyone can be a pound for pound all-time great. Not everyone's got that skill level. But he has still gone on to achieve more than 99.99999% of fighters will ever achieve in their careers. He's achieved on paper a great status that will be etched in the annals of boxing history. There aren't that many Aussie boxers that have gone on to become unified or undisputed lightweight champions of the world. Now, thankfully, there are some people that have given him credit. So I had Alvin S, for instance, at Evercool on Twitter. He tweeted to say, fighters like Kambosos deserve nothing but praise for daring to be great and taking the risks. It's a quality that is getting rarer in fighters. Kambosos was good enough to become a champion, winning a fight that not many gave him a chance in. Then he went for undisputed. I respect him. Victor Onyebuchi also tweeted to say, it's crazy seeing the disrespect Kambosos is getting. With reactions like this, you get why these fighters don't want to fight anyone notable. Boxing fans are the worst on earth. This is something that I also mentioned, by the way, on my recent interview with Chris Ackers and G-Man, that exact same notion. And Chris Ackers also tweeted, and he said too many boxers try to talk their way into championship fights instead of proving themselves against top level opposition. Kambosos backed up his words with actions and took the risk of going into other people's yards to do so. Other than Usyk, which other world-class fighters have fought in the opposition's territory as much as Kambosos has over the last 5 years? Now, those are notable, logical ways of observing Kambosos. Regardless of what you think, is he anywhere near the top of the sport or not? Very few fighters are. The fact is, he's got the fighting will of a champion. You know, George Kambosos calls himself the Spartan warrior. And a lot of people have almost taken on this theme, right? A lot of boxers, even Tyson Fury, they love it, right? Ho, ho, and all that. The soldiers, they're coming down in the Spartan attire. With Kambosos as part of his identity, he's grown up learning about this history. He's got tattoos alluding to this stuff all over his body, including the phrase Molon Lave on his forearm, which I've discussed in a previous video, The Psychology of a Spartan, where I spoke about George Kambosos and his psychology post his victory over Teofimo Lopez. Well, I want people to try and understand what the Spartans were. You see, a lot of people associate being a warrior and being a champion with always being successful. But the Spartans knew they were going to lose that war against the Persians. The Persians were going to invade during the Olympic Games. During the Olympic Games, the entire Greek nation was away at Olympia. All the warriors, all the soldiers competing. So the only people that were left behind to defend Greece from an invasion were the king and his personal guard of 300 bodyguards. That's who the 300 Spartans were. They also managed to gather up about 1,000 Acadians, like people that lived nearby who were essentially farmers. And according to different historical accounts, depending on which ones you believe, they were outnumbered by an army of anything between 50,000 and 200,000. So whether they were outnumbered by 50 to 1 or 200 to 1, they knew they had no chance. And the Persians actually gave them great terms. All you have to do is allow us to roll in and absorb you into the empire. You will be put on a pedestal. You know the phrase, a Spartan lifestyle? That means to live a restricted lifestyle. You're going to be given more than what you've got now. You don't have to live restricted. We'll give you gold and valuable metals. We're going to give you great food and wine and anything else you want. You are going to be second only to us. You're going to be privileged within the empire. You will be leaders, captains within the empire. And the Spartans replied that their liberty was not for sale. When they were told, just surrender your weapons and you will have this perfect existence, their sole reply was, Molon Lave, which translates to come and get them. When they were told, do you know how many of us there are? Our arrows will blot out the sun. Their response was, well, then we shall fight in darkness. This is how defiant they were. They knew, though, they were going to die. When George Kambosos was told by Devin Haney and Lomachenko and these guys, we want your titles, he didn't run. He said, Molon Lave, come and take them. He knew the level of these guys. He sparred all over the world. He genuinely must see himself as a world-class lightweight. Of course, top 8 guy for sure. But he's not stupid. He knows we're talking about Lomachenko and a guy being touted as the new Floyd Mayweather in Devin Haney. He knows the obstacle. Now, this idea that he was only trying to cash out, let's consider whether that's true, shall we? When people were coming at me on Twitter after I put up that message, and they were saying to me, George Kambosos was just trying to cash out. That's all he wanted to do. He knew he was going to lose. Lou DiBella wanted to cash out on him. Lou DiBella actually got involved in the Twitter exchange. And he said, stop, man. I had 14 fights for George that would have sold out the Rod Laver without any real risk of losing. He wanted a stadium and he wanted one of the 2 best in the division, Loma or Devin. Give the man credit for wanting more smoke than I wanted for him. Respects. Think about that. His own promoter is telling him, George, we can ride this thing till the wheels fall off. I can get you 14 dudes that are waiting in the wings. Take your pick. Make your money. And instead he said, Lou, I'm going to make my money anyway. I'm a true champion. I want all that smoke from everyone. There are other champions sitting in smokeless rooms and they're installing as many air purifiers as they possibly can. They're not going to fight anybody unless the dude's just been sacked from McDonald's for taking a dump in the urinal, but he used to fight in a club, as a club fighter, and all of a sudden he's a worthwhile opponent. This is the mentality of a lot of these other top guys, top fighters. That's not George Kambosos. He could have fought Billy Dibb, the number 2 lightweight in Australia. And many of you might say, but Chris, who would have wanted to have seen that? How many people internationally do you think really wanted to see Amir Khan against Kell Brook? And again, some of you are going to say, but Chris, there was a history there. There wasn't a history with Kell Brook and Chris Eubank Jr., and that got close to being made. When Zarafa was going to fight Jeff Horn, huge fight in Australia, who was watching it outside of Australia? And I'll tell you something else as well. When you sell that idea, if Kambosos starts to win easy fights against tomato cans, tune-up fights, but you sell the story well, what do you think happens in that interim time? When Anthony Joshua lost to Alexander Usyk, the first time, it cost him millions in his sponsorship deals. When you're winning, you're getting money coming in from other angles and sources, other outlets. It's not just the fights you agree to in the sport. Kambosos has a clothing line that's come out from G'd Up, the company's called. And they actually did a really nice hoodie, a blue and white hoodie, a Spartan helmet on the chest, really nice. He was also wearing that really nice baseball cap that was black with the Byzantine signs on the side, the Spartan helmet, the Kambosos helmet on the front. They released a batch and they got sold out instantly. Imagine you see him then beating Billy Dib. 6 months later, he beats a guy who's a no-hoper, but they sold you the story. And in the meantime, Devin Haney, 18 months from the first time he actually fought him, is now struggling even more to make the weight. He's even more drained. Lomachenko, he's even older. You're aging him out more, and so on and so forth. Then after that, you take the big fight. And if you lose, you lose, but you made a lot of money along the way. So this idea that they had to cash him out instantly, like they couldn't have found a couple of guys that wouldn't have a chance against George Kambosos, right? They couldn't have found a couple of guys. Like, what are you talking about? Give the dude credit. Because on the other end of the spectrum, what are we seeing? We're seeing David Benavidez now agreeing to fight Jose Escatagai. Apparently this fight's very close to being made. Escatagai failed the PED test in 2021, November, for REPO, which is a synthetic version of EPO. He lost 3 fights ago. In that period of time, what's he done? He's beaten the likes of Romero, who was 20-19-1, and Obando, who was 20-28-2. 20-28-2. He's lost 28 times. And then when David Benavidez absolutely chops this dude to pieces, people are going to say, give him the Canelo fight. Canelo don't want any of him. He's ducking. Imagine Kambosos got in with someone like that after a record like that, what people will be saying. And yet, they don't want to be calling him a champion. They don't want to be putting him on a pedestal. I'm going to tell you a little anecdotal story to close this out in the hope of portraying exactly how I see George Kambosos and how I believe he should be seen in comparison to some other guys that are put on pedestals but don't convey that same energy as him. We were in Cyprus on holiday and I was about 18 years old. There were 5 of us. And of the 5 friends, 4 had been trained since childhood in some sort of martial art, whether it was boxing, kickboxing, Wing Chun or Muay Thai. One of the boys, one of the 5, had not been trained in anything, but he was in good athletic shape. He was a football player. We were in a club and we left the club and the sun was just starting to come up and we heard about an impromptu beach party that was about to start with the sunrise. So we figured, let's go get something to eat, then pop down to the beach and check out this new party. So we go to this little hot sandwich place. We're ready to order. All of a sudden, 8 guys walk in. Now, they were quite known in the garage music scene. They weren't nationally known like So Solid Crew or anything like that. But they were known. If you followed that scene, you'd have known who they were. They came in very aggressive, decided to start ordering. And we just looked at each other thinking, all right, they've pushed in the queue, whatever, rude, but whatever. We're not going to ruin our night. Ignore it. Wait for them to order. Then we'll order. We'll go to the beach. At that point, one of them turns to the other one of their own friends and says, what is this C word looking at about one of the other boys? And he said it to himself, but to his friend. He hasn't said it directly to us, but he said it loud enough for us to hear. And the tension in the room at that point, you could start to cut with a knife. We all understood something was about to go off here. Now, I'm not in a good position at all. There's a guy standing at like 11 o'clock to me and another one standing at like 9 o'clock, directly side on to me. Now, because they've spoken to themselves rather than address us, I decided I'm not going to turn around and look straight away. What I'm going to do is pretend I'm looking at the food menu, still being fully aware of who they are. And from there, I'm going to take a step back and diagonally, sort of to my own right, to maximize the distance between them, if I can, pretending I'm reading the food menu, and taking away that angle to the side of me. So I've brought them both to sort of like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. on a clock to me. One of the 4 friends who was with us and was trained, he disappeared. He went out of the right-hand side door. He would later tell us that he needed to go to the toilet and hadn't realized that anything was going on. This was rubbish. He blatantly knew. We all knew. It was loud in the way that they said it, and there was tension in the room. The friend who was a footballer, who would have been very uncomfortable in this situation, he grabbed a little glass bottle that he had in his hand already, a little bottle of water, and he came and stood behind me to the left side of my shoulder, also pretending as though he was reading the menu. But what he was doing is coming to the left side of me, behind me, to get the angle on him. The guy that was to my 9 o'clock, now my friend is on the side of him. Even though we're outnumbered, he's put himself in a position where he's saying, right, if somebody jumps Chris now, I can then jump in to try and help. Luckily, nothing came of this because 2 policemen also happened by chance to come by because they too wanted to get a sandwich of their own. The point is this. The more highly trained guy who would batter the footballer in a fight, he disappeared. The footballer is the one that said, we're going to go down swinging if we have to. Who do you want with you in the trenches? Who's got the heart of a Spartan? Who's got the mind of a champion? A lot of people say phrases like, anyone that gets in the ring is brave. That's not true. Because when you are taught to fight from a young age, it becomes your comfort zone. In the same way that 200 years ago, if I told you putting you in a metal tube and flying you through the air is what was going to happen this afternoon, you'd be terrified. What? I'm not doing that. Does that mean pilots are super brave? Anybody that gets into an aeroplane is super brave? Air stewards? No. But it becomes part of your comfort zone, part of your skill set. You are in control of your environment, so you feel. Same way with a fighter. Where bravery comes into it is when you're facing seemingly insurmountable odds or very difficult odds where you know you are in danger, like the footballer behind me, and you still say, I need to do what's right. I need to battle my fears. That's what makes a guy a champion. So being a highly trained fighter that you put on a pedestal that's not taking risks, he's nothing compared to George Kambosos in terms of the warrior code that Chris Eubank Sr. talks about. Because Kambosos was ready to take on better guys than him. Guys that he knew were significant threats to him, but he still wanted all that smoke. He was still saying to himself, if I lose, I'm going down swinging. Molon lave, just like the footballer. You understand? That's who George Kambosos is. Anyway, let me know what you think about this video, ladies and gents. Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.